Nemi's starfighter hurtled through the void, a streak of brilliant light against the backdrop of endless stars. She gripped the controls with white-knuckled intensity, her eyes scanning the myriad readouts and displays that screamed warnings at her. The ship shuddered violently, its once sleek and formidable frame now a battered shell, ravaged by enemy fire and the unforgiving vacuum of space. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Lieutenant Nemi of the Kira fleet, requesting immediate assistance," she broadcasted, her voice strained but steady. Static was the only reply, the comms unit flickering and hissing in defiance. She was alone. The planet below loomed larger by the second, a desolate wasteland of rocky crags and barren plains. It was an uncharted world, a forgotten corner of the galaxy where few, if any, would ever venture. Her starfighter's engines sputtered, their once potent hum reduced to a feeble whine. She had minutes, maybe less, before impact. Nemi's mind raced. Her training as a pilot and soldier had prepared her for countless scenarios, but crash landing on an unknown planet was not among them. She rerouted power to the forward thrusters, hoping to slow her descent, but it was a losing battle. The ground rushed up to meet her, a blur of gray and brown. "Brace for impact," she muttered to herself, her heart pounding in her chest. She engaged the emergency protocols, the ship's systems automatically locking her into the pilot's seat, enveloping her in a cocoon of protective foam. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The starfighter slammed into the planet's surface with a deafening roar, the impact jarring every bone in Nemi's body. Metal screeched and buckled, the once formidable craft now a twisted wreckage. Dust and debris filled the air, obscuring the harsh landscape. For a moment there was only silence. Then the pain hit her, a searing agony that coursed through her body. She tried to move, but her limbs felt like lead. Darkness encroached on the edges of her vision, threatening to pull her under. "Stay awake," she commanded herself, forcing her eyes open. The ship's interior was a ruin, smoke and sparks filling the air. She had to get out. She had to survive. Adam trudged through the rocky landscape, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust with each step. He adjusted the strap of his pack, shifting the weight of the tools and supplies he carried. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the desolate terrain. This planet, with its barren beauty and harsh climate, had been his home for the past 3 years. It was a place where few ventured, a forgotten corner of the galaxy, where he could escape the chaos and conflicts of humanity. Here he had found a semblance of peace, a life of solitude and self-reliance. As he rounded a craggy outcrop, a glint of metal caught his eye. He squinted, adjusting his visor to filter out the glare. In the distance, a plume of smoke rose into the sky, marking the spot where something or someone had crashed. "Another shipwreck," he muttered to himself. It wasn't the first time he'd come across wreckage on this forsaken planet. Smugglers, pirates, and explorers all met their end here, their ships succumbing to the planet's treacherous gravitational pull and unpredictable weather. Curiosity piqued, Adam changed course, his steps quickening. As he approached the crash site, the smell of burning metal and scorched earth filled his nostrils. The wreckage was still smoldering, the twisted remains of a once sleek and advanced starfighter. Adam's heart skipped a beat. This was no ordinary ship. Its design was unlike anything he had seen before, sleek and alien in its construction. He scanned the wreckage, searching for any signs of life. "Hello? Anyone alive in there?" he called out, his voice echoing in the silence. A faint groan reached his ears, and Adam's eyes narrowed, honing in on the source of the sound. He clambered over a pile of debris, his heart pounding. There, trapped within the crumpled cockpit, was a figure. An alien figure. Nemi's vision was blurred, her mind a haze of pain and confusion. She could hear someone calling out, a voice distant and distorted. She forced herself to focus, to respond. "Here. I'm here," she managed to croak, her voice weak. The figure moved closer, and she could make out the silhouette of a human male, his features obscured by a visor and mask. He reached out, his hands gentle but firm, as he began to pry open the cockpit. "Hang in there," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "I'm going to get you out." Nemi nodded weakly, her body limp and unresponsive. The human worked quickly, his movements efficient and practiced. Within minutes he had managed to free her from the wreckage, carefully lifting her out and carrying her to a safer spot. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes fluttering shut. She felt the darkness closing in, her body succumbing to the exhaustion and pain. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was the concerned face of her rescuer, his eyes filled with determination and compassion. Adam carried the unconscious alien to his makeshift shelter, his mind racing. He had never encountered a member of the Kira species before, though he had heard of their advanced civilization and the war that raged among the stars. He laid her down gently on a cot, assessing her injuries. She was badly hurt, with cuts and bruises covering her body. Her breathing was shallow, and she was losing blood from a gash on her side. Adam set to work, using his limited medical supplies to tend to her wounds. He cleaned and bandaged the cuts, doing his best to stabilize her condition. Nemi awoke to the sensation of warmth and the sound of a crackling fire. She blinked, her vision slowly coming into focus. She was in a small, makeshift shelter, the walls lined with metal panels and scavenged materials. The human who had rescued her sat nearby, tending to a small fire. "You're awake," he said, his voice gentle. "How are you feeling?" Nemi tried to sit up, but a wave of pain washed over her, forcing her back down. "Sore," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But alive, thanks to you." The human nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I'm Adam," he introduced himself. "You're safe here for now. Can you tell me your name?" "Nemi," she replied, her eyes meeting his. "I'm Lieutenant Nemi of the Kira fleet." Adam's expression darkened slightly at the mention of the Kira fleet. "What happened?" he asked. "How did you end up crashing on this planet?" Nemi took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I was on a reconnaissance mission," she began. "We were ambushed by enemy forces. My ship was damaged, and I had no choice but to make an emergency landing here. My crew, they left me for dead." Adam listened intently, his gaze unwavering. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "No one deserves to be abandoned like that." Nemi nodded, a mixture of pain and anger flashing in her eyes. "Thank you for saving me," she said. "I owe you my life." Adam shook his head. "You don't owe me anything," he replied. "Let's focus on getting you better first. We can figure out the rest later." Nemi's recovery was slow but steady, and as the days passed, her strength began to return. The alien pilot's shimmering green skin, once pallid from her injuries, regained its vibrant hue. Adam, the solitary prospector, found himself increasingly fascinated by Nemi's resilience and determination. They were an unlikely duo, bound together by circumstance and necessity. One crisp morning, the desolate planet's twin suns cast long shadows across the barren landscape. Adam stood at the entrance of his makeshift shelter, staring out at the twisted remains of Nemi's starfighter, scattered like skeletal remains on the rocky terrain. He knew that if they were to survive, they needed to make use of what little they had. "Nemi," Adam called out, his voice carrying on the dry wind. "We need to start salvaging parts from your ship. There might be something useful we can use." Nemi emerged from the shelter, her movement still somewhat stiff. Her eyes, a striking shade of violet, narrowed as she surveyed the wreckage. "You're right," she replied, her voice tinged with the melodic lilt of her native tongue. "We can't stay here forever. We need to be prepared for anything." Together they approached the wreckage. The starfighter, once a sleek and formidable machine, now lay in ruins, its metallic hull scorched and twisted. Nemi knelt beside a mangled wing, her fingers tracing the intricate alien markings etched into the metal. Adam watched her with a mix of curiosity and respect, noting the sadness that flickered across her face. "Do you miss it?" Adam asked softly, breaking the silence. Nemi glanced up, her expression thoughtful. "My ship was more than just a vessel. It was my home, my sanctuary. It carried my hopes and dreams. Now it's a reminder of all I've lost." Adam nodded, understanding her sentiment. "We'll make something new from its remains," he said, his voice steady. "We'll turn this wreckage into something that can help us." With that, they set to work. Adam's knowledge of human engineering combined with Nemi's understanding of alien technology made for an unusual but effective partnership. They sifted through the debris, carefully extracting components and examining each piece for potential use. As they worked, they fell into a rhythm, their actions synchronized. Adam marveled at Nemi's expertise, her hands moving deftly over the complex machinery. She explained the functions of various components, her voice passionate and animated. Adam, in turn, shared his own insights, offering suggestions and making connections that bridged the gap between their two worlds. Hours turned into days as they toiled together. They salvaged power cells, fusion cores, and intricate circuitry, laying out their findings on a large flat rock. Adam used his tools to modify and adapt the alien technology, while Nemi guided him, her knowledge proving invaluable. One evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, they finally took a break. They sat side by side, gazing at the stars that began to twinkle above. The silence between them was comfortable, a testament to the bond that had formed through their shared labor. "Tell me more about your people," Adam said, breaking the stillness. "About the Kira and the war you're fighting." Nemi sighed, her eyes reflecting the distant starlight. "The Kira are a proud and ancient race," she began. "Our civilization is highly advanced, but with that advancement came conflict. We are at war with a rival species, the Axar. It's a war that has cost us dearly." She paused, her expression pained. "I joined the fight because I believed in our cause, in protecting our way of life. But now, stranded on this planet, I see things differently. The war has taken so much from me, from all of us." Adam listened intently, his heart heavy with empathy. War changes everything, he said quietly. It strips away the things that matter most. They sat in silence for a moment longer, each lost in their thoughts. Then, with a determined look, Nemi stood up. "We can't let the past dictate our future," she declared. "We have a chance to make a difference, to survive. Let's focus on that." Inspired by her resolve, Adam nodded. "You're right. Let's finish what we started." The following days were a blur of activity. They built a makeshift workshop, using the shelter's materials and the starfighter's remains. Nemi's knowledge of advanced technology allowed them to create devices far beyond Adam's previous capabilities. They constructed a small power generator, capable of harnessing the planet's geothermal energy, providing them with a reliable source of electricity. They also fashioned a communication device, blending human and Kira technologies. Though it was rudimentary, it offered a glimmer of hope that they might contact someone off-planet. As they worked side by side, their bond deepened, transforming from mere alliance to genuine friendship. One evening, as they made the final adjustments to the communication device, a sudden realization struck Adam. "Nemi," he said, his voice tinged with excitement. "If we can get this device working, we might be able to reach out for help. We might not have to face everything alone." Nemi's eyes widened with hope. "You're right, Adam. We have to try." With renewed determination, they completed the device, their hands moving in perfect harmony. When the final connection was made, a soft hum filled the air, and the device sprang to life. They exchanged a hopeful glance, knowing that this was just the beginning of their journey. As they stood together, illuminated by the soft glow of their creation, they felt a sense of accomplishment and unity. The wreckage of Nemi's starfighter, once a symbol of despair, had become a beacon of hope. And in that moment they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as partners and friends. The night sky above the desolate planet was a canvas of swirling stars and distant galaxies, a stark contrast to the rugged, barren landscape below. Nemi, her wounds nearly healed, sat outside the small shelter Adam had built. She gazed at the stars, her mind a tangled web of memories and regrets. Adam, ever watchful, sat nearby, sharpening a makeshift blade. "Do you miss it?" Adam's voice broke the silence, his eyes not leaving the blade. Nemi turned to him, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "Miss what?" "Your home, your people, the life you had before this war." Nemi sighed, a sound filled with centuries of sorrow, every day. "But it's a life I can never return to, not after everything that's happened." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden, high-pitched whine that cut through the night air. Adam's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the horizon. Nemi's heart raced as she recognized the sound. "Kira droned," she whispered, fear lacing her voice. Adam stood up, his body tense and ready. "How bad?" "Very bad. If it's here, it's looking for me, and it won't stop until it ensures I'm dead." A bright light pierced the darkness, and a sleek, metallic drone emerged, hovering ominously above them. Its sensors scanned the area, locking onto Nemi. Adam grabbed her arm, pulling her towards the shelter. "We need to move now." Inside the shelter, Adam frantically rummaged through their supplies, pulling out weapons they had salvaged from Nemi's starfighter. Nemi joined him, her hands trembling but determined. "We can't outrun it," she said, her voice steadying. "We have to destroy it." Adam nodded, handing her a blaster. "Then we make our stand here." The drone descended, its weapons systems activating with a menacing hum. Nemi and Adam crouched behind the shelter's flimsy walls, their hearts pounding in unison. The first shot from the drone's cannon obliterated a nearby rock, sending shards flying. Adam peeked out, taking aim with his blaster. "Cover me." Nemi fired at the drone, her shots deflecting off its armor. The drone retaliated, its shots barely missing them. Adam rolled out from behind the shelter, firing a precise shot that hit one of the drone's sensors, causing it to spark and flicker. "Nice shot," Nemi shouted, focusing her fire on the damaged sensor. The drone faltered, its movements becoming erratic. Adam ran to a nearby rock formation, using it as cover. "We need to hit it hard, all at once." Nemi nodded, her mind racing. She adjusted the settings on her blaster, overloading its power. "On my mark, hit it with everything you've got." The drone stabilized, its remaining sensors locking onto Nemi's position. She took a deep breath, her finger hovering over the trigger. "Now." Nemi and Adam fired simultaneously, their shots converging on the drone's weakened sensor. The combined force of the blasts overwhelmed its defenses, and the drone exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave knocked them back, debris raining down around them. Silence followed the explosion, the night sky once again tranquil and indifferent. Adam helped Nemi to her feet, both of them breathing heavily. The remnants of the drone smoldered on the ground, a testament to their victory. "We did it," Adam said, a grin spreading across his face. Nemi nodded, her heart still racing. "But more will come. They won't stop until I'm dead." Adam's expression hardened. "Then we need to get off this planet. Find somewhere safe." They returned to the shelter, gathering their supplies and making plans. The urgency of their situation pressed upon them, but so did a newfound determination. They had faced a deadly threat together and emerged victorious. The frontier colony of Elysium Prime was a patchwork of makeshift structures and bustling markets, perched precariously on the edge of the lawless frontier. It was a haven for those who wished to escape the clutches of galactic bureaucracy, a place where smugglers, traders, and wanderers coexisted in a delicate balance. The arrival of Adam and Nemi did not go unnoticed. As they disembarked from their cobbled-together transport, the crowd parted, casting curious and suspicious glances their way. Nemi, still weakened but fiercely determined, drew the most attention. Her tall, slender frame and the faint iridescence of her skin marked her as distinctly alien. Adam, with his rugged, no-nonsense demeanor, stood protectively by her side, his eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of trouble. "Stay close," he murmured to Nemi, who nodded, her eyes wide with both caution and curiosity. They made their way through the throngs of people, heading towards the center of the colony, where a large, weather-beaten tavern stood. The sign above the door read "The Last Refuge," and it was known as a place where one could find information, deals, and if necessary, allies. Inside, the tavern was dimly lit and filled with the murmur of hushed conversations. The smell of strong ale and spiced food hung heavy in the air. Adam led Nemi to a corner table, where they could observe the room while remaining relatively inconspicuous. "We need to find Aura," Adam said, his voice low. "She's a pilot I know from way back. Owes me a favor or two." Nemi nodded, her eyes scanning the room. "And you trust her?" "As much as I trust anyone out here," Adam replied. "She's reliable, and we don't have many options." Minutes turned into an hour as they waited, nursing their drinks, and keeping a watchful eye on the door. Just as Nemi began to lose hope, the door swung open, and a figure stepped inside, her presence commanding immediate attention. Aura was tall and lean, with an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight braid, and her piercing green eyes scanned the room with the precision of a hawk. She wore a well-worn pilot's jacket, adorned with various insignias and patches from countless missions and escapades. Adam stood up, catching her attention. Aura's eyes narrowed momentarily before a slow smile spread across her face. She made her way to their table, her movements smooth and purposeful. "Adam Walker," she said, her voice a mix of amusement and curiosity. "Never thought I'd see you again." "Aura," Adam replied, gesturing for her to sit. I need a favor. Aora raised an eyebrow as she took a seat, her eyes flicking to Nemi and then back to Adam. You're always needing favors. But this time, it looks interesting. Who's your friend? This is Nemi, Adam said. She's in a bit of trouble, and we need to get off this rock. Fast. Aora leaned back, crossing her arms. Trouble seems to follow you, Adam. What kind of trouble are we talking about? The kind that involves Kira drones and a war that's about to spill over into this sector, Adam replied. Aura's expression shifted, a flicker of concern crossing her features. Kira drones, huh? That's serious. And you think you can just waltz in here and ask for my help, no questions asked? Adam met her gaze steadily. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. And I know you owe me. Aora's eyes softened slightly, and she let out a sigh. Fine, I'll help. But this isn't going to be easy. We'll need to move quickly and quietly. Nemi, who had been listening intently, spoke up. Thank you, Aura. I understand this is a lot to ask. We won't forget your help. Aora nodded, her gaze softening as she looked at Nemi. Just make sure you're worth the trouble, all right? They spent the next few hours planning their escape. Aura's ship, the Starlight Whisper, was a sleek, fast vessel capable of evading most detection systems. They would need to leave under the cover of night, navigating through the less traveled routes to avoid patrols and other dangers. As dusk settled over Elysium Prime, the trio made their way to the docking bay where the Starlight Whisper awaited. The ship was a marvel of engineering, its sleek lines and advanced technology a testament to Aora's skill and resourcefulness. Welcome aboard, Aora said, leading them up the ramp. Strap in and get ready. This is going to be a bumpy ride. Adam and Nemi settled into their seats, the hum of the ship's engines filling the cabin. As they lifted off, the lights of the frontier colony faded into the distance, replaced by the vast expanse of space. For the first time since their paths had crossed, Nemi allowed herself a moment of hope. They were no longer alone, and with Aora's help, they had a fighting chance. Their journey was far from over, but together they were stronger. As the stars streaked past the viewport, Nemi glanced at Adam, who gave her a reassuring nod. They were a team now bound by necessity and growing trust. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The Starlight Whisper accelerated into the blackness of space, leaving the frontier colony behind. Their next destination, a new chapter in their shared journey, fraught with danger but also with the promise of new alliances and unforeseen possibilities. The steady hum of Aora's starship, the Wanderer, filled the cabin with a soothing rhythm, a stark contrast to the turmoil that had recently engulfed their lives. Adam and Nemi sat in the cockpit, their eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space ahead, glittering with stars and the occasional distant nebula. The journey through space had begun, and with it, a new chapter in their intertwined destinies. Nemi's skin, a shimmering teal under the ship's lights, had regained much of its vibrant hue since Adam had first found her. She glanced at him, her sharp, alien features softened by a rare moment of peace. We must prepare ourselves, Adam, she said, her voice carrying a melodic undertone that he had grown to find comforting. The war. It is worsening. Our destination is fraught with danger. Adam nodded, his rugged face etched with determination. I know, Nemi. But together we can face anything. He leaned back in his seat, the worn leather creaking under his weight. Tell me more about this outpost we're heading to. Nemi's eyes flickered with a mixture of hope and anxiety. The outpost, known as Haven's End, is a neutral ground, a sanctuary for those who seek refuge from the war. It's located in a region called the Tranquil Expanse, but lately tranquility has been in short supply. If it falls, it could tip the balance of the entire conflict. Aura, their pilot and guide, joined them in the cockpit, her tall frame casting a shadow over the control panels. Her dark eyes were serious. I've seen Haven's End, she said. It's a place of rare beauty, but it's also a strategic point that both sides covet. We'll have to be careful. The Wanderer sliced through space, its engines leaving a trail of luminescent blue. The trio spent hours discussing tactics, combining Nemi's knowledge of alien technology with Adam's practical, no-nonsense approach to problem-solving. They knew they had to make a difference, not just for themselves but for the countless lives that hung in the balance. As they neared the Tranquil Expanse, the stars seemed to dim, replaced by the eerie glow of distant battles. The once peaceful sector was now a battleground, littered with the wreckage of ships and the remnants of destroyed satellites. Aora deftly navigated through the debris, her hands a blur over the controls. Haven's End is just ahead, she said, pointing to a cluster of lights on the horizon. Prepare for docking. Adam and Nemi exchanged a look of silent determination. They had come this far together, and there was no turning back now. As the Wanderer approached the outpost, the scale of the conflict became painfully clear. Ships of various sizes and origins buzzed around the station, a hive of activity and tension. Docking procedures were swift but tense, the station's personnel on high alert. As they disembarked, Adam and Nemi were greeted by Commander Seraphine, a stern-faced woman with a reputation for fairness and strength. Her silver hair was tied back in a no-nonsense braid, and her uniform was pristine despite the chaos around her. "Welcome to Haven's End," she said, her voice carrying the weight of command. "We need all the help we can get. The situation is dire." Nemi stepped forward, her presence commanding respect. "We are here to help. We bring knowledge and skills that can turn the tide." Adam nodded in agreement. "We've brought supplies and weapons salvaged from Nemi's ship. Combined with what you have, we can turn this outpost into a formidable defense. But we need everyone's commitment. This is our last stand." Commander Seraphine nodded, her gaze shifting to Adam. "And you, human, what do you bring to this fight?" Adam met her eyes with unwavering resolve. "I've seen too much destruction. I bring the will to end it." Their integration into the outpost's community was swift. Nemi's technological prowess was put to use in upgrading defenses and optimizing systems. Adam, with his practical skills, became an invaluable asset in training the militia, teaching them guerrilla tactics and survival skills. As days turned into weeks, the outpost transformed. Under the combined leadership of Nemi, Adam, and Commander Seraphine, the once defenseless haven became a formidable stronghold. They worked tirelessly, forging bonds with the inhabitants, who came to see them as symbols of hope. As days turned into weeks, the outpost transformed. Under the combined leadership of Nemi, Adam, and Commander Seraphine, the once defenseless haven became a formidable stronghold. They worked tirelessly, forging bonds with the inhabitants, who came to see them as symbols of hope. Nemi's knowledge of advanced Kira technology proved invaluable. She worked tirelessly, integrating salvaged alien tech with the outpost's rudimentary defenses. Holographic shields were erected around the perimeter, invisible barriers that would absorb and deflect incoming fire. She instructed the outpost's engineers, their skepticism slowly turning into admiration as they witnessed the enhancements firsthand. Adam took charge of training the militia. He gathered the able-bodied men and women, their faces a mix of determination and fear. His voice carried authority and encouragement as he drilled them in combat tactics and marksmanship. He shared his hard-earned wisdom, teaching them to use their environment to their advantage, to think like survivors, not just fighters. "Remember," Adam said during one grueling session, "we're not just defending a place, we're defending our hope, our future. Stand together, and we will prevail." Aura, ever resourceful, coordinated the logistics. She organized supply runs, ensuring the outpost had enough food, water, and medical supplies to withstand a prolonged siege. Her charisma and connections brought in additional allies, bolstering their numbers with experienced fighters and medics. As the days passed, the outpost transformed into a bustling hive of activity. Walls were reinforced, weapon emplacements constructed, and lookout towers erected. But with the increased activity came heightened tensions. The presence of an alien, even one as noble as Nemi, stirred old prejudices. Whispers of distrust echoed through the ranks, threatening to unravel their fragile unity. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the outpost, a heated argument broke out in the mess hall. A burly miner named Jarek stood up, his face red with anger. "Why should we trust her?" he shouted, pointing a finger at Nemi. "She's one of them. How do we know she's not leading them straight to us?" The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Nemi. She stood tall, her gaze unwavering. Before she could respond, Adam stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Nemi has risked her life for us more times than I can count," he said. "She's proven her loyalty through actions, not just words. We need to stand united, or we'll fall divided." Maris, who had been watching from the corner, stepped in to defuse the situation. "Jarek, we are all in this together. Nemi has given us a fighting chance. Let's not waste it on unfounded fear." Reluctantly, Jarek backed down, but the incident served as a stark reminder of the fragile trust holding them together. The morning of the attack dawned with a tense silence, broken only by the distant rumble of approaching enemy forces. Scouts reported that the enemy was advancing in waves, their numbers overwhelming. The outpost braced for impact. Nemi stood at the front lines, her eyes scanning the horizon. The air was thick with anticipation. Adam joined her, his rifle slung over his shoulder. "Here they come," he said quietly. The first wave hit hard. Enemy soldiers swarmed the outpost, but they were met with fierce resistance. The holographic shields flickered to life, absorbing the brunt of the assault. The militia, now a well-coordinated unit, fought with determination and skill. Adam's training paid off as they held their ground, pushing back the attackers. Nemi moved with grace and precision, her alien weaponry cutting through the enemy ranks. Her presence was a beacon of hope, inspiring those around her. Adam fought alongside her, their partnership seamless as they covered each other's backs. Despite their efforts, the enemy's numbers began to take their toll. The outpost defenses started to falter and casualties mounted. In the chaos, Maris was injured, and Aora took over command, rallying the defenders with a fiery determination. "We can't let them break through," Aora shouted, her voice carrying over the din of battle. "Hold the line." As the dust settled, the outpost stood victorious. The enemy retreated, their ranks broken. Cheers erupted among the defenders, a mix of relief and triumph. Nemi and Adam returned to the outpost as heroes, their actions having saved the day. Maris, despite her injuries, greeted them with a grateful smile. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with awe. "You turned the tide." Nemi nodded, her expression serene but determined. "We couldn't have done it without everyone here. This victory belongs to all of us." Adam looked around at the faces of the defenders, now filled with respect and admiration for Nemi. "We've proven that unity is our greatest strength. Let's build on this victory and strive for lasting peace." The victory at the outpost was more than just a military success. It was a turning point in the war, a beacon of hope that inspired others to seek peace and cooperation. Nemi and Adam, once isolated survivors, had become central figures in this new era of unity. Their relationship deepened, evolving into a profound partnership built on trust and shared purpose. Together, they envisioned a future where different species could coexist, their journey marking the beginning of a hopeful new chapter for the galaxy. And so, as the outpost began to rebuild, its inhabitants looked to Nemi and Adam not just as heroes, but as symbols of what could be achieved when differences were set aside in the pursuit of a common goal. The war was far from over, but the seeds of peace had been sown, and with it, the promise of a brighter future. The cold steel walls of the outpost's command center loomed around Nemi and Adam as they finalized their plan. The weight of their mission pressed heavily on their shoulders. Outside, the stars glittered like 1,000 silent witnesses to the pivotal moment unfolding within the confines of their modest stronghold. Nemi's violet eyes, a striking feature of her Kira heritage, flickered with determination. She glanced at Adam, whose rugged features betrayed both weariness and resolve. They were about to undertake a mission that could alter the course of the war, a war that had torn through galaxies and left countless lives shattered. "Are you sure about this?" Adam asked, his voice low and steady. His gaze never wavered from Nemi's face, searching for any hint of doubt. "We have no choice," Nemi replied, her voice firm but tinged with the slightest edge of fear. "If we don't stop this war, millions more will die. We must try to negotiate a ceasefire, no matter the risk." Their plan was audacious: infiltrate the enemy's command ship, the formidable flagship of the Kira fleet, and negotiate a ceasefire directly with its commander. The very thought seemed absurd, yet the desperation of their situation left no room for second thoughts. They boarded Aura's sleek, nimble starship, the Starling, under the cover of night. Aura, with her sharp eyes and quick reflexes, had prepared the vessel for stealth. The ship hummed softly as it powered up, ready to slip through enemy lines undetected. The journey through space was tense. Nemi and Adam sat in the cockpit, their eyes fixed on the endless expanse of stars. Every now and then, a distant explosion or flash of light would remind them of the war raging around them. They exchanged few words, their minds focused on the task ahead. As they neared the enemy's flagship, the Nexara, the real challenge began. The Starling stealth systems worked flawlessly, allowing them to approach the massive warship unnoticed. The Nexara was a behemoth, bristling with weaponry and teeming with Kira soldiers. Its dark hull seemed to absorb the light of the stars, rendering it an ominous silhouette against the backdrop of space. Aura maneuvered the starling to a docking bay on the underside of the Nexara. The trio donned their infiltration gear black, form-fitting suits designed to blend into the shadows. As the airlock hissed open, Nemi led the way, her movements silent and precise. Inside the Nexara, the corridors were a maze of cold metal and harsh lighting. They moved with the grace of phantoms, avoiding patrols and security checkpoints. Nemi's knowledge of Kira ships was invaluable, guiding them through the labyrinthine passages towards the command center. They encountered their first major obstacle at a heavily guarded security station. Nemi signaled for them to halt, her sharp ears picking up the distant sounds of footsteps and muted conversations. She turned to Adam, her expression resolute. "We'll have to take them out silently," she whispered. "If we're detected, this mission is over." Adam nodded, his grip tightening around his plasma pistol. They split up, flanking the guards from either side. Nemi struck first, her movements swift and lethal. Adam followed suit, neutralizing the remaining guards before they could raise an alarm. The corridor fell silent once more, the only sound their measured breaths. As they reached the command center, they paused. This was the most dangerous part of their mission. Nemi took a deep breath, her eyes meeting Adam's. "No matter what happens, we do this together," she said. Together, Adam agreed, his voice unwavering. They burst into the command center, weapons drawn. The Kira officers inside reacted with shock, reaching for their own weapons. Nemi and Adam were faster, disarming and incapacitating them with precision. At the heart of the room stood Commander Cryas, a towering figure with an air of authority and a reputation for ruthlessness. His eyes narrowed as he assessed the intruders. "Nemi," he said, his voice a cold rumble, "I should have known you'd survive." "We're here to end this war," Cryas Nemi replied, stepping forward. "Too many lives have been lost. We need a ceasefire." Cryas laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think you can just waltz in here and demand peace? You're a traitor to your people, Nemi, and you, human, are nothing more than a nuisance." Adam stepped up beside Nemi, his eyes locked on Cryas. "We're not leaving until you agree to a ceasefire. This war benefits no one." The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with hostility. For a moment it seemed like Cryas might order their execution. But then, something shifted in his gaze, a flicker of doubt, perhaps, or the weariness of a long-fought war. "Very well," Cryas said finally, his tone begrudging. "I'll hear you out, but make no mistake, this changes nothing if your terms are unreasonable." Nemi and Adam exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of their shared hope. They laid out their terms, speaking of peace and cooperation, of rebuilding what had been destroyed. Cryas listened, his expression unreadable. Hours passed in tense negotiation, but finally, they reached an agreement. Cryas activated the ship's communication array, broadcasting the ceasefire to the entire fleet. The message echoed through space, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness of war. Exhausted but resolute, Nemi and Adam left the command center. The Nexara's corridors seemed less foreboding now, as if the very ship acknowledged the possibility of peace. Back on the Starling, Aura greeted them with a relieved smile. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with awe. "We did it," Nemi corrected, her eyes meeting Adam's. The bond they had forged in adversity was unbreakable. As they flew back to the outpost, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if celebrating the fragile peace they had won. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, hope blossomed in their hearts. The galaxy still had much healing to do, but Nemi and Adam were ready to face the challenges ahead together.